Akagami no Shirayuki-hime is one of those rare anime that is empowering for more than just the titular character's gender. This show treats its cast with the respect they all deserve, regardless of whether they're main characters, side characters, or even just minor characters from the beginning. Everything and everyone put into the show has a purpose, and the best part is these purposes can change just like in real life. People in this show are complicated, and grow and exist as real people, with characterization that resonates with the real world. And this resonance creates an empowering example in all of its characters, to strive for a better future for themselves and those they interact with too. Shirayuki is an obvious starting point, and her journey from the beginning of the series is really one of a mental struggle, rather than anything physical, though she still does prefer to get her hands dirty in the process of pursuing her own dream, to become a court herbalist. Even from the beginning, she wasn't going to take anything from anyone. She cuts her hair and leaves the kingdom she's a part of to avoid the prince trying to get her as a concubine, and then immediately tries to get away from Zen when he comes into her life as well, unsure as to who she can trust now that she's on her own. That first impression is proven incorrect, but even after being pursued by Zen as a friend, Shirayuki decides to stand on her own two legs. She would rather rely on her own skills to get where she wants to go, instead of depending on a favor of some prince from a different country. This woman is the pinnacle of a self-starter and a very hard worker. Throughout the series, her steadfast refusal to bow to the whims of others, and fate itself, is a sterling example of how to react when the odds are so stacked against you. Zen's kingdom is much more progressive than the one Shirayuki came from, but even here she finds obstacles standing in the way of her path. Despite these problems though, she chooses to continue her path alone, even after taking a step further toward her dream. She wants to be worth Zen's attention of her, not in the way of insulting her own self-worth, but to prove to everyone in the kingdom what she already knows, that she can be and is the only one who can stand beside their beloved prince as an equal. There are many examples of Shirayuki inspiring others with her actions throughout the series, and it's no wonder she's beloved both by Zen and almost everyone she comes in contact with. Even some of the shadier characters end up seeing the light through Shirayuki's example, with the biggest and best of these occurring in the form of the prince that started her journey in the first place. After a few run-ins with Shirayuki post-pursuit of her, Prince Raji of Tonbaran comes to understand that his actions were misguided, and that the way he acted previously was unbecoming of a true prince. The way he comes to these conclusions, however, is the show's greatest strength, as the changes come from many minor decisions and introspection over several episodes. It would have been easy to paint Raji as the villain for the anime's entire runtime, but instead he's treated with the respect I mentioned earlier that befits a living, breathing character. He isn't some kind of mustache-twirling villain, even despite what he acted like in the first episode. Raji's path is course-corrected, with minor adjustments, instead of the big, sweeping changes that most anime would treat changing their enemies' minds with. There is no massive fight to punch the truth and justice into him. It's simply a handful of encounters with not only Shirayuki, but those around her as well. Since though Shirayuki herself is a beacon of empowerment and free-thinking mental mobility, her light shines and brings out the best of those she interacts with, even the villains. It's a little like pure light, reflecting from sun-polished mirrors and shining at the darkest parts of your soul, forcing you to confront those negative emotions and thoughts that make up the worst parts of your being. And it isn't instantaneous, but a slow shedding of those ideas and motivations, as Raji thinks himself and his actions over, as any sane person would given the opportunity. And even then, Raji still isn't perfect. He sometimes falls back into his own habits and prejudices when confronted with the unexpected, but when it counts, he can pull himself together and be the man that Shirayuki sees the potential of in him. And that's ultimately what the show is about. The great potential that lies at the heart of every person coming forth to better the world and the people, not at the expense of yourself, but hand in hand as the journey of life moves forward. This is no more apparent than the quandary that Obi finds himself constantly butting heads with. The idea of self-worth compared to the worth of those he admires beyond all reasonable thought. Don't get me wrong, devotion is an admirable goal, and the attendants that Zen surrounds himself with all have that supreme devotion to the prince that is shown in every action they undertake. Obi, a latecomer to the circle of not only attendants, but actual friends, sees himself as the outsider, that he isn't worth the friendship extended to him from the others. He only sees himself as a shield or weapon to blunt the negatives of the world that seek to impact those he cares about. It's only through spending time with Shirayuki, Zen, and the rest of the cast that his opinions about himself begin to change, ever so slightly. It takes time, and it again doesn't come all at once, but through minuscule moments where he's offered the chance to change the course that, truly, he sets for himself, but doesn't yet realize he can change thanks to the line of thought he's fallen into from his youth. His budding feelings for Shirayuki are a central part of this later, but even they are initially the rope with which he hangs himself, the best of intentions robbing him of the potential Shirayuki sees in him. Constant change is how we as beings grow from the layer of shells we hang around us. Only by letting others into your vulnerabilities, and learning from theirs, can we come together to form the perfect world. An endeavor that may seem impossible, and may well be in reality. But as Shirayuki and Zen demonstrate constantly, striving for that world is just as important as making it occur. Without a journey, there cannot be an end. And yet not every journey reaches the end they desire. Only through the combination of our individual thoughts and dreams can we make reality bend itself in small, subtle ways, until the possibility is just in reach. If not for us, then for those that come after. Nothing, and no one, changes quickly in any real way. It takes time and patience to change the world and your path through it. A thought that comes to Zen from watching Shirayuki blaze her own trail through life. Zen intends to become just as worthwhile for Shirayuki as she hopes to be for him. And through this combined striving toward an ideal that can shape their separate worlds, they can create a kingdom that furthers the empowerment of the individual through unity, reflection, and acceptance. But I digress. Akagami no Shirayuki-hime is an anime that empowers every one of its characters to strive to be better. Not just for themselves, but for everyone they interact with too. A lesson I think we can all take to heart. There are many more characters I could talk about that embody this ideal that Shirayuki espouses, not from her words, but from her actions. But the best way to understand this is to experience the show itself. And what a wonderful journey it is. So I urge you, watch Akagami no Shirayuki-hime. Enjoy the journey. Let the glow of these lovable characters flow through you, and help you examine yourself, even if it's in simple, small ways. Or just enjoy it for what it is. You can even not watch it at all, and simply be content with what I've said here. If you fall into any of the categories I just mentioned, especially the last one, consider subscribing to my channel to keep up with my thoughts on the anime I love so dearly. You can even hit that notification bell to know exactly when a new video of mine goes up. And if you think your friends might enjoy my content, let them know by sharing and liking this video, as well as any of the others you decide to watch. Of course, if you want to contact or interact with me directly, just leave a comment down below, or talk to me on my Twitter at any time, and I'll discuss and talk with you about anything, regardless of the subject matter, anime or not. And in the end, I hope you remember to enjoy the way you watch anime, because as long as you're having fun, that's all that really matters. See you next time.